In the 79th year of the Galactic Accord, a call for help echoed from the Zolari system. The planet's biosphere, once lush with cyan forests and freshwater oceans, was collapsing under centuries of industrial neglect. The Zolari were no threat. They had no fleets, no weapons, and barely a space program. What they did have was desperation. In their final broadcast of the Galactic Council, they pleaded not for favors, but for survival. Earth responded before the Council even convened, not out of obligation, but because that's what Earth did now. Centuries had passed since humanity's wars burned continents. Now they built, healed. When the call came, Earth answered with the largest humanitarian fleet in galactic history. 432 vessels, each outfitted with planetary restoration tools, autonomous medical platforms, atmospheric regenerators, and cultural support teams. They called it the Mercy Fleet. It wasn't a military convoy. There were no warships, no dreadnoughts. These were science vessels, hospital cruisers, terraformers, and aid transporters. The people aboard weren't soldiers. They were botanists, pediatric surgeons, drone architects, and volunteer linguists. Entire families watched their loved ones board, proud and solemn. There was no bravado, no fanfare, just quiet conviction. Each ship bore a name: resolve, unity, sanctum, hope, etched not with ego but intention. Humanity had learned to value symbolism. It mattered that a Zolari elder, trembling with radiation sickness, would be cared for aboard a ship named Compassion. In an address broadcast across SolNet and the Interstellar Common Frequency, a young mission commander, only 28 Earth years old, said before launch, "We go not to conquer, but to preserve. If we are remembered, let it be for this." The launch was watched by over 10 billion sentients across a dozen allied species. Zolari children wept openly at the sight of the fleet vanishing into the slipstream. They were told help was coming, and it was. Slip space travel wasn't instant, but the route to Zolari Prime was considered safe. Neutral territory, uncontested, no pirate activity in over 6 cycles, no history of conflict. The convoy followed a staggered formation to allow real-time medical support across vessels. Standard protocol. They expected nothing unusual. 68 hours into the transit, all contact ceased. At first, Earth's deep relay systems assumed a comms blackout, slipstream static or local anomalies. Then came the fragment. It was audio only, distorted, a voice barely above a whisper, fragmented by data loss and raw panic. Under attack, no insignia. Hull breached where we're not, then silence. Emergency protocols activated. Relay drones were dispatched. Data packets reconstructed. What they found was chaos. Torn hulls, drifted modules, biometric logs ending mid-sentence. The footage, recovered from the service droid's internal cam, showed fast-moving shapes tearing through corridors, bodies of unarmed medics thrown against bulkheads, AI support cores being melted through cleanly, as if with surgical intent. No warnings, no demand for surrender, no communication, just systematic elimination. In a matter of 9 minutes, 82% of the fleet was destroyed. The ship Unity, broadcasting humanitarian ID codes on all known frequencies, was split in two by an unmarked projectile. No energy signatures matched known weapons. The detonation left behind isotopes never before encountered. It wasn't piracy. Piracy takes. This left nothing. Of the 432 ships, only 16 limped into real space. Each one was damaged beyond autonomous repair. Their crews, some missing limbs, others sedated in stasis, bore physical signs of combat. These were medics and civilians, unarmed, unprepared. One of them, a linguist aboard the ship's shelter, managed to record a final personal log before the escape pod ejected. "If this is war, we didn't start it. And if they think we won't answer because we came in peace, they don't know us at all." The transmission went viral. On Earth, everything stopped. Schools closed. Traffic halted. The stock market suspended. No announcement told them to do so. They just did. Cities gathered in silence as the official casualty list scrolled across public skyboards. The youngest victim was a 14-year-old engineer's apprentice. The eldest, a 91-year-old bioethics counselor. These were not warriors. These were the best of Earth. Memorials began not with speeches, but with action. Children placed hollow candles at every spaceport. Aliens wept in front of human embassies. Across the galaxy, a singular question spread like radiation. Who would attack the rescuers? But Earth didn't ask that question. Not yet. Instead, they listened to the survivors. One voice, one face. A field doctor named Amina Kale, her left arm replaced with a rudimentary prosthetic made from salvaged hull plating, stood before the Earth Assembly in a sealed chamber. No theatrics, no tears. They didn't come to steal, she said. They came to erase. This was not a message. It was a test. They didn't attack our fleet. They attacked our belief that we could help without consequence. Her words were archived instantly in 2,000 languages. Behind the scenes, something ancient moved. Humanity, in all its softness and post-war idealism, still remembered. Deep in the Antarctic bastion of Archon Command, a single word appeared on screen sealed since the age of the interstellar border conflicts. Awaken, but the world above didn't know that yet. All they knew was that the Mercy fleet had been slaughtered, not in error, not by accident, but by design. And someone, somewhere, believed Earth would do nothing. They were wrong. The shock didn't wear off. It calcified. For 72 hours, Earth grieved in silence. Across every major settlement, from orbital rings above Mars to subterranean colonies beneath Europa, no music played. No shows aired. Civilian feeds were muted. Billions simply watched the name scroll. Not just humans, but aliens too. The loss of the Mercy fleet wasn't just an attack on Earth. It was an attack on the very concept of peaceful intervention. Investigations launched immediately. Humanity's forensic AIs, some designed for black site counterespionage, were released from their dormancy. They didn't work like organic minds. They worked faster. Within 16 hours, they identified something the Galactic Council had missed entirely. Microscopic decay traces on the escape pod hulls. Quantum signature irregularities. Too refined for pirates. Too surgical for accident. The data trail pointed in one direction. The Karnak Syndicate, an unofficial coalition of corporate warlords. The Karnak were known, barely tolerated, and quietly loathed. Not a race, but an economy built on conflict. Weapons dealers, mercenary brokers, black market AI smelters. Technically unaligned, officially unaffiliated, unprovable in court. But everyone knew who benefited when chaos reigned. The Mercy fleet never stood a chance. Earth presented its findings to the Galactic Council in a closed session. Multiple delegates gasped when the forensic overlays were displayed. The Karnak representative denied everything. They offered condolences. They suggested maybe it was rogue elements. They smiled carefully. The Council, ever cautious, issued a recommendation to delay. Further investigation. Patience. Mediation. Earth left the chamber without responding. Back on Earth, the Assembly convened in a private session. No broadcast. No crowd. One agenda item. When the High Chancellor finally emerged, the transmission lasted 46 seconds. She looked directly into the lens, her voice steady. We have buried our healers, our engineers, our best. You murdered our hope in cold vacuum. No insignias, no warning, no honor. We do not negotiate with silence. We do not mourn forever. We do not forget. She paused. We offered medicine. You answer with slaughter. We will not ask again. That was all. Within the hour, Earth activated protocols unseen in over 2 centuries. Deep beneath the Mariana Trench, a submerged facility pulsed with life. Project Vanguard, decommissioned, archived, and sealed by treaty, lit up as ancient servers spun back into awareness. Black fleets, never acknowledged in any public record, began to move. These weren't military ships. They were something older, built in secret, designed not for occupation or diplomacy, but for erasure. Armor made of self-repairing neutron carbon lattice. Heat signatures mimicking comet drift. They didn't appear on sensors. They didn't leave trails. They existed only when they wanted to. They had one mission: deterrence through incomprehensible superiority. The first deployment was invisible. 5 systems under Karnak control experienced unexplained system failures within the same solar hour. Shield generators failed. Orbiting satellites deorbited. Entire supply chains crashed. And then came the message, not a broadcast, a rewrite. Across every screen, console, and augmented retinal feed in Karnak space, a single sentence appeared in white text on a black field. This was mercy. The next won't be. Panic rippled. The Karnak scrambled their defense fleets. Old warlords came out of retirement. Mercenary contracts tripled overnight. Planetary militias began orbital drills. But the damage was already done. Fear is hard to fight. Then the second wave began. Earth's Ghost Fleet didn't strike with lasers or bombs. It disrupted. Entire planetary economies locked down as AI viruses corrupted financial cores. Supply drones rerouted themselves and never returned. Civilian communications played back distorted messages, cut together from black box logs of destroyed Mercy fleet. We came to help. We were unarmed. We were burning. We're not soldiers. This is not how it ends. The audio loops were maddening. Some warlords sealed their own bunkers in paranoia. And then came the silence. 3 full Karnak colonies went dark. No explosion. No radiation. Just quiet. Their own emergency networks couldn't locate them. When a mercenary ship dared to investigate one of the dark zones, it found cities untouched, but completely paralyzed. Electrical grids disabled. Fuel inert. Oxygen processors running, but dimmed to breathable minimums. A single phrase was carved into the planetary governor's residence wall in scorched titanium. Don't touch our wounded. The galactic news tried to report, but Earth never made a formal statement. The council demanded explanation. Earth said nothing. They didn't deny it. They didn't confirm it. They just let the results speak. By now, even the non-aligned races began to distance themselves from Karnak. Trade embargoes followed. Supply routes collapsed. Entire mercenary legions turned on their masters for credits they'd never see. The syndicate began to fracture. Still, there was no large-scale battle. Earth had not declared war. They had not fired first. They had simply responded. One Karnak general attempted retaliation. He cobbled together 5 ships, armed them with legacy warheads, and targeted a human science station near Deneb. The ships vanished 16 seconds after leaving hyperspace. No explosion. No wreckage. Later, one of Earth's older AI war advisors, long since retired from public knowledge, sent a message to the Council. War is not a line. It is a door. You opened it. Now live inside it. Galactic sentiment shifted overnight. Delegates who once urged caution now offered apologies. The Zolari, now sheltering in Allied space, transmitted a single image to Earth, a child holding a replica of the Mercy Fleet's flagship, hand-carved from stone. The inscription read, "We remember who came." By the end of the week, 46 Syndicate-aligned colonies surrendered to Earth without conflict. They didn't ask for terms. They just lowered their defenses and waited. But Earth didn't come to conquer. They never did. They didn't take territory. They didn't install governors. They just sent repair drones to the systems the Syndicate had left to rot. They fixed things Karnak never bothered to. And everywhere they landed, they left the same quiet warning. This is what restraint looks like. By the second month, the Karnak Syndicate was no longer a syndicate. It was debris, arguments, and unburied secrets. What hadn't been dismantled by Earth's invisible war had been torn apart by internal betrayal. But Earth wasn't celebrating. They weren't broadcasting victory. There were no banners, no victory parades, just silence and movement. Every attack Earth executed was surgical. Minimal loss, maximum message. They could have ended worlds. Instead, they left them standing, powerless, exposed, ashamed. Some still didn't understand. A few war profiteers, deep in the outer sectors, saw Earth's restraint as hesitation. They mistook mercy for limits. One of them, a rogue armaments magnate named Threx Vel, declared that he would restore balance by striking a blow against what he called the human delusion of moral dominance. He hired private fleets, gathered black market kinetic rods, chose a target, Vesta Colony, a mid-sized civilian research outpost in the asteroid belt. It had no weapons, just scientists, botanists, children. They never saw him coming. The rods fell, silent, supersonic, and final. In under 90 seconds, the colony ceased to exist. Over 3,000 dead. There was no message this time. No escape pod. No broadcast. Just a crater in the void. The galaxy waited. Everyone had seen what Earth had done to armed warships and fortified colonies. What would they do when someone killed their children? But Earth didn't speak. Not immediately. Not publicly. What happened next took place far from cameras and transmitters. A rogue mining station near the galactic rim, known for harboring mercs and illegal tech trades, suddenly lost pressure. A fault in its primary oxygen systems, the log said. But the timing, precisely 3 minutes after Threx Vel arrived, was too precise. Vel's ship was found a week later. Or what was left of it. It had been moved, towed into orbit around an uncharted dwarf planet, orbiting upside down with its hull peeled open like fruit. No life signs, no data core, no weapons, just a repeating loop playing from the vessel's emergency comm system. 3 sentences, monotone, unfeeling. You killed our healers. You killed our builders. You killed our children. We are not your monsters, but we become them for our own. No one claimed responsibility. No trace signatures. No ship logs. But everyone knew. The story spread like wildfire, translated across dozens of tongues. The phrase became a warning, painted on hangar walls, etched into mercenary gear, whispered in bounty hunter dens. The message was clear. Earth didn't forgive. It had never been about pride, never about revenge. It was something older, something colder. A belief wired into the species after centuries of surviving their own worst selves. You do not harm the ones who help. Every human child learned that before they could speak. To betray that principle meant more than death. It meant becoming a memory that Earth would never let rest. After Vel, no one dared touch another civilian colony. Even the most hardened pirate syndicates changed their behavior. Ship registries cross-reference human transport IDs in real time, refusing to engage if there was even a trace match. Human aid vessels began receiving safe passage relays from species who once distrusted them, not out of alliance, out of fear. But Earth didn't want obedience. They didn't want the galaxy kneeling. They wanted something simpler, recognition. So they kept doing what they'd always done. They rebuilt. In the aftermath of the Mercy fleet's destruction, Earth launched a new initiative, Project Phoenix. They didn't name the ships after virtues this time. They named them after the fallen. Each vessel was a tribute. Each hull carried the names of those who died not in war, but in service. These new ships were different. Not just stronger, smarter, adaptive shielding. Sentient AI partners bonded with crew, zero-emission drives. They could land on unstable terrain, terraform deserts, and deploy mobile hospitals within hours. And yet, they remained unarmed. Deliberately, they didn't come with guns. They came with warnings. Each Phoenix-class ship carried a permanent orbital beacon that transmitted a single repeating phrase on all known frequencies. We are not protected by weapons. We are protected by memory. No one touched them, not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't. Even the Galactic Council, once hesitant and bureaucratic, restructured its stance. They passed the Unified Humanitarian Protection Clause, an interspecies treaty recognizing all civilian aid vessels as under-shared sovereign protection. An attack on one was now legally an attack on all. Earth hadn't asked for it, but they didn't oppose it either. Because Earth didn't just earn respect. They forced the galaxy to remember, and the galaxy began to change. Species that once ignored cries for help now answered. Not out of altruism, but out of precedent. If Earth would respond with fire to protect kindness, maybe it was better to build than destroy. Aid networks expanded. Collaboration centers appeared in neutral space. Former mercenaries found honest work as escort pilots for refugee convoys. Not because they were suddenly noble, but because Earth had redefined what consequences looked like. Still, there were some who whispered unease. What kind of people hold back oceans of wrath until you cross their last line? What kind of civilization chooses to help first and only retaliates when mercy is met with blood? And when they do retaliate, why does no one survive? Those whispers didn't stop aid ships from flying. If anything, they ensured it, because now, when a Phoenix-class vessel entered orbit, planets didn't question its motives. They cleared the skies. They opened their ports. They sent children to greet them, because every species had come to understand the same unspoken truth. Earth doesn't start wars. They end them. Time passed, but the echoes of Earth's silent fury remained. The galaxy slowly adjusted, its edges softening where once they had been sharp. The Karnak Syndicate had fractured, yes, but its remnants still held influence, now operating in the shadows. Far less visible, but no less dangerous. Earth's response had changed everything, but it had also made the universe ask one uncomfortable question. What would happen if the human race ever truly decided to fight back? The answer wasn't clear yet. Earth didn't flaunt their power. They didn't go looking for conflict. They had their own problems, their own developments. Humanity wasn't infallible. They had their fractures, their factions, their doubts. But one thing was undeniable. Every species in the galaxy now understood that Earth was a force to reckon with. Even those who had once thought Earth an easy target for exploitation, weakness masked by goodwill, learned differently. Some tried. Some still sought to take advantage of Earth's reputation for peace. But there was something in the way Earth handled its newfound power that made it impossible for others to fully ignore. No one would ever attack a human rescue fleet again. But that didn't mean the galaxy suddenly became a perfect place. The next test came when an ally of the Karnak, an ancient, notoriously reclusive species known as Nzora, decided to push the envelope. Known for their relentless pursuit of technological advancement through any means, including forbidden research, the Nzora made a catastrophic mistake. In their arrogance, they attempted to replicate the very technology Earth used to identify and disable fleets at subatomic levels, believing that humanity's restraint was a weakness. They believed that by mastering the tech, they could gain leverage against any race that dared to challenge them. And at first, it worked. They built the device in secret, stationed on a remote mining planet, and began testing. Their first experiment was subtle, disrupting small trade ships, freezing their engines, and sending them off course. At first, the Nzora were satisfied with their success, but they soon grew bolder. With each successful experiment, their hunger for dominance grew, and they decided to test their new weapon against something far greater than isolated trade vessels. They targeted a small, unarmed human medical convoy. No weapons, no security. Just a few ships carrying much-needed supplies to a colony in the Zeta system. The Nzora hadn't expected the outcome. The convoy's lead ship, the Resilience, was hit first. The device fired, a strange, crackling pulse that interfered with the ship's drive systems. But instead of merely stalling the ship as intended, it tore through its energy fields in a way no one could explain. In an instant, the ship detonated, exploding into a massive shockwave, much larger than any conventional weapon could cause. The second ship in the convoy, the Hope's Reach, activated its fail-safes and transmitted a distress signal, its AI trying desperately to compensate for the disruption. And yet, before the message could even complete, the same energy pulse took down the Hope's Reach. The Nzora couldn't understand why their weapon had spiraled out of control. It took minutes for them to realize what had happened. The human convoy wasn't just an easy target. It was bait. It was a trap, a careful calculation. Earth knew the Resilience and the Hope's Reach were just the first waves in a much larger response. Earth didn't have to send fleets of warships. They didn't need to send a barrage of weapons to annihilate the Nzora. They simply deployed Protocol Omega, a contingency plan never meant to be seen by anyone else in the galaxy. A failsafe, buried in the archives of human command for centuries, activated only when the balance had been tipped too far. The Nzora's testing ground, their secret base, became a ghost world. The moment they fired the pulse of the Resilience, their own network was traced, not by human ships, but by Earth's vast array of automated monitoring systems. Satellites, quantum signal interceptors, AI networks that had been designed solely to track galactic interference. Without the Nzora ever knowing, Earth began the process of slowly erasing their capabilities. It started with subtle disruptions. Communication satellites targeted, intercepted, rerouted. Their power grid collapsed. Minor anomalies turned into system-wide failures. Weapon stockpiles vanished into empty space. Their location scrambled. Then the real strike came. In a matter of days, Nzora territory experienced complete technological collapse. Shipyards disintegrated. Factories turned to rubble. High-level tech engineers, those who had been pivotal in developing the pulse weapon, found themselves wandering their own cities, disoriented, unable to remember their designs. Every single piece of technology that had been used to harm Earth and its people was systematically undone. No warships were needed, no weapons, just quiet, invisible retaliation, one that the Nzora couldn't fathom and could never fight. It was not a war. It was something simpler, a recalibration, a reminder that Earth's strength didn't lie in its firepower. It lay in its resilience, its precision, and its ability to strike in ways others couldn't even comprehend. And just like that, the Nzora learned what the rest of the galaxy had learned. Earth wasn't just a place. It was a force of nature. The last message sent from Nzora space was an encrypted transmission that leaked into the galactic network. It contained only a single word. Why? The response came, as it always had, because we protect the weak. We protect those who can't fight back. And we don't forget who tries to take advantage of that. There were no weapons fired, no fleets to challenge, no planets destroyed. But there was something even more powerful, a message. The Nzora, like the Karnat before them, faded into memory. They weren't destroyed by Earth's might. They were erased by Earth's will to protect. And in the wake of these unspoken victories, the universe began to turn its eyes toward humanity not as a species to be feared, but as the only species who would never forget and never let go. Because now, everyone understood. When Earth intervened, it wasn't because they had to. It was because they chose to. And when Earth chose to act, nothing stood in their way.